In a small village surrounded by endless fields of wheat and rice, there lived a farmer named Ravi. His life was simple. He woke up with the rising sun, worked hard under the scorching heat, and returned home with hope in his heart. His land was his pride, and his family was his strength. But fate has a way of testing the strongest hearts. The year had started with promise. Ravi's fields were green, and he dreamed of a harvest that would finally bring prosperity. But one evening, dark clouds gathered over the village. The gentle rain turned into a raging storm. Day after day, the skies poured endlessly. Soon, the small river that flowed near Ravi's fields swelled into a monster. Within a week, his land disappeared under muddy water. Crops that he had nurtured for months drowned before his eyes. Ravi stood in the rain, powerless, watching his dreams sink into the flood. At night, he returned home drenched and defeated. His wife, Mira, tried to console him, but the fear in her eyes was stronger than her words. Their children, too young to understand, asked why their father no longer smiled. But the storm was not just outside, it had entered their hearts as well.
The flood had destroyed more than just Ravi's crops. It had stolen the very foundation of his family's life. With no harvest to sell, no money to buy food, and no hope for the near future, the little house that once echoed with laughter became filled with silence. Mira, his wife, grew restless. Nights turned into arguments. "How long can we live like this, Ravi?" she asked one evening, her voice trembling with both anger and despair. Ravi had no answer. His hands were strong enough to plow the earth, but too weak to fight against destiny. One morning, Ravi woke up to an emptiness he could not explain. His wife's clothes were gone. The children's small shoes were missing from the doorstep. On the wooden table lay a folded note. It read only a few words. "We cannot survive here. Forgive me." Ravi's knees gave way, and he sat on the cold floor. The silence of the house pressed down on him heavier than any burden he had ever carried. He stepped outside and looked at the empty fields, now just mud and water. For the first time in his life, Ravi felt truly alone. Days turned into weeks. Villagers whispered about him. Some pitied him, others mocked his misfortune. But Ravi kept working, repairing his hut, clearing his land, trying to coax life back from the soil. Yet every evening when he returned to his lonely home, the emptiness reminded him of all he had lost. Still, somewhere deep inside, a spark refused to die. The land had betrayed him, the river had drowned him, his family had left him, but he was still breathing. And as long as he breathed, he wondered if there was still a reason to fight.
Ravi's days became a quiet routine. At dawn, he rose with the crowing roosters, though no one waited for him at the breakfast table anymore. With nothing but stale bread and water to fill his stomach, he walked to his ruined fields. The soil was still damp from the flood, cracked in some places, heavy with mud in others. It was as though the earth itself was mourning. But Ravi refused to surrender completely. Each morning he carried his wooden plow and dug small trenches to let the water escape. Each evening his back ached, but he pushed himself harder. Some neighbors noticed his struggle. An old man named Hari, whose own farm had partly survived, stopped by one day. "Why do you work so hard, Ravi?" he asked gently. Ravi, wiping the sweat from his brow, answered with a faint smile. Because this land is my only companion now. If I leave it, I will truly have nothing. Hari nodded and placed a handful of seeds in Ravi's palm. Try these. They are small but strong. If you give them care, they might return the care to you. For the first time since the flood, Ravi felt something stir in his heart, a fragile thread of hope. That night, as he sat alone under the flickering oil lamp, he stared at the seeds resting on the table. They were tiny, almost insignificant, yet they carried a promise. The next morning, he planted them carefully, whispering to the soil as though speaking to a friend. Weeks passed. Every day, he checked, watered, and protected the fragile shoots. And one evening, just as the sun painted the horizon gold, Ravi saw the first green sprout rising from the ground. His eyes filled with tears. It was a small sign, but to him it was life itself returning. For the first time since the flood, Ravi whispered to the empty house, "Maybe tomorrow will be kinder."
As weeks turned into months, Ravi's small patch of land began to change. The once lifeless soil now carried rows of tender green plants. Every sprout was a reminder that even after destruction, life could rise again. Ravi worked harder than ever, but this time his labor was not filled with despair. It was guided by determination. He repaired the broken fence around his fields with his own hands. He built small canals to protect the plants from future floods. His body was thin, his face marked with lines of exhaustion, but his spirit was no longer broken. One evening, a group of villagers walked past his field. They stopped, staring at the sight of green life swaying gently in the wind. "Look," whispered one man, "isn't that Ravi's land? The one that was completely destroyed?" Another shook his head in disbelief. "I thought he would leave the village after his family abandoned him. But he's still here, and look at what he has done." Slowly, the whispers spread through the village. Ravi, the man who had lost everything, was bringing his land back to life. Some began to approach him, first out of curiosity, then out of respect. Children ran to his fields, laughing as they chased butterflies among the crops. For the first time in many months, Ravi smiled. Old Hari returned too. He watched Ravi working and said, "You see, my friend, the land is like us. It suffers, it breaks, but if given patience, it heals." Ravi looked over his field, his heart swelling with quiet pride. He still missed his wife and children deeply, but he no longer lived only in the shadow of loss. He had discovered something stronger than sorrow: resilience. That night, sitting under the stars, Ravi whispered to himself, "They may have left me, but life itself has not abandoned me. And as long as I breathe, I will keep planting hope."
David decided that he would no longer live as a prisoner of his habits. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual. The sun felt different that day, brighter, warmer. He picked up the books that had been untouched for months. He switched off his phone and started writing small goals on paper. The beginning was hard. Every habit resisted him. His body wanted to sleep longer, his mind wanted to relax, and distractions called his name. But each time he was tempted, he reminded himself, "I am not defined by my laziness. I am defined by what I choose to do now." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Slowly, David transformed. His mornings were no longer wasted. He worked with focus, he studied with commitment, and he trained his mind to fight procrastination. Time rewarded him. David started a small business project, the same kind he once laughed at. To his surprise, it grew. His effort attracted people who believed in him. His parents, once worried, now smiled with pride. Neighbors, relatives, and even his old friends began to respect him not for what he dreamed, but for what he did. He wasn't the same David anymore. He was disciplined, focused, and hungry for growth. Looking back, David realized the truth. Time is life's most valuable currency. Laziness is the most dangerous thief, and success belongs only to those who act, not to those who wait. The narrator ends with this message: life is a test of discipline. Laziness will steal your future, but discipline will build it. Quit laziness, value your time, and turn your dreams into reality. Final words appear on screen. Don't waste time. Build your future. Start now.